All right, so this is 11 lit. Everybody's here, but I thought we should record this anyway. We're going to look at the poem When I Heard the Learn'd Astronomer, and we have a copy of that. I will also check these at some point when we're finished. So, real simple poem, but not as simple as it looks, actually. I mean, it looks short and simple. Aurora, do you mind reading it? When I Heard the Learn'd Astronomer.
When I heard the learned astronomer, when the proofs, the figures, were ranged in columns before me, when I was shown the charts and diagrams to add, divide, and measure them, when I sitting heard the astronomer when he lectured with much applause in the lecture room, how soon, unaccountable, I became tired and sick, till rising and gliding out, I wandered off by myself in the mystical moist night air, and from time to time looked up in perfect silence at the stars.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you all to read it one more time to yourselves. Not out loud, but just to yourselves. See if you see anything the second time you didn't hear the first time. All right, so let's answer the questions together. I like these questions. They're designed to go along with the questions we know you have to ask poetry, and starting with the speaker and the setting. So Delaney, can you identify the speaker? Remember, we're not talking about the author or the poet, just the speaker in the poem. What do we know about him, and what do we know about the setting?
It says I a lot, and then it says me. So wouldn't that be like identifying a writer? Like,
Would be what?
wouldn't it be like Whitman?
Well, Whitman wrote it, but we don't know that Whitman was talking about himself, just like Mark Twain is not Huck Finn. You know, Huck Finn is the speaker in the book. Mark Twain is not a 14-year-old boy. He was a grown man. So what do you know about the speaker in the poem? And we can feel sure that this was not Walt Whitman because of who this guy is.
Can I go back to the office?
Yeah, you feeling all right?
Not really.
I'm sorry. I'm recording this for you. I thought you might feel bad. All right. What is the week? Remember Wednesday, we're going to read 235. Hope you feel better. What do you think, Delaney? Oh, we're doing, you want this? You have this. We're actually doing this poem. I think you have it. We did.
Yeah, I have that.
Okay, we're doing the poem on the next page, and that's what I'm recording. Delaney, what do you know about this, the I in the poem? Like, who is he?
Like an astronomer? Like he learned astronomy?
Well, look at the first line in the title. What does it say?
When I heard.
All right, so he is not the astronomer. He's listening to astronomer, and where is he when he's listening? That would be the setting. Where is he? Probably. Not probably. Where is he? He tells you right there, about halfway down the poem.
So do you say sitting?
Where do you think that we would be sitting? Well, look, it tells you exactly in line, the fourth line, what?
In a room.
And a lecture room. So what would a lecture room be?
Where you teach.
Yeah, in a school. So here's a student in a school, and it happens to be an astronomy class. All right? So remember, we know Whitman never went to college. He never took astronomy classes. You have to go to college to get that. And it couldn't be him. Look at number 2. what is the speaker doing in the poem? What's the situation? What action does he take? Sierra.
He's like listening.
Right.
He's listening in the classroom.
And just to reiterate, who is he listening to?
Astronomy.
Okay. What do astronomers teach about?
The sky.
The stars and so forth, yes. And so what does he do?
He gets up.
Right. Do you know why? Well, I guess we could go to Aurora. Why does he leave? Or number 3, how does he feel about what's going on? How others feel about what's going on?
He's like tired and bored of what he's listening to.
Yeah, how do you know that? I mean, he might need to, maybe he didn't feel good, like, you know, just leaving class, or
Or
maybe.
is he like, or what he was, but now he's like thinking about like the stuff he's listening to, like the astronomy, and so now his mind is kind of taken off into that.
So I'm just gonna press your one, how do you know that it's the lecture that made him feel bad? Aren't you saying that? Or maybe you're not saying that. Like, what's making him leave? He says he became tired and sick, but how do you know, what is it that makes him tired and sick?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's actually not an easy question. We had somebody just leave, and I don't think it was because of the class. I think it was because she wasn't feeling well. So how do you know that that's not the case here? Well, that'd be a dumb poem, wouldn't it? If it was about you were sick and you left because you felt sick, what's the point? That wouldn't make a really good point. So, what do you think, Sierra? Why is he leaving?
Maybe because the lecture, it says he was shown like the charts and the diagrams and all of that, and then
And let me just interrupt you just a minute. How did the other people react to that?
they liked it
How do you know?
because they were giving much applause.
So they applauded him. He left. So you're telling me that maybe it was the lecture about stars that made him somehow sick and tired. You were going to say something else.
That was it.
Okay. Look at number 4. Delaney. The poem presents 2 sharply contrasted ways of coming to terms with the stars. Describe these 2 opposed views. Like, what does he do when he leaves? He leaves the room, and what does he do?
Doesn't have the end of his note say he's looked up in perfect silence at the stars?
So it's interesting, he left a lecture about stars and goes outside and goes and looks at stars. Is he more comfortable outside than he was inside?
Okay.
Well, how can we be sure of that? Or what do you think? Is he more comfortable outside?
Probably, yeah.
Well, can we be a little more
Probably because.
Confident. Look at the words in the second part of the poem. How do you know that he's more comfortable outside than he was inside?
The lecture room is like, he says that he was tired and sick, but then when he goes outside, he describes it as like mystical and the perfect silence, so I think he feels more like comfortable and calm when he's outside.
I like your answer. That's a good answer. And you gave good evidence why that's true. You mentioned, what did you say? He perfect silence. He looks up at the stars. Is that what you said? Mystical, more so than that. And how does he feel? Like, is there any words in the second that might suggest how he feels? Any words? I mean, you mentioned what he does, but how do you know that? What are some other words that may describe how he feels? Sarah, do you see some other words? Was it silent inside the classroom? There were people clapping, he was talking, but now it's quiet. I agree with you. What about the words rising and gliding? What does that suggest? Delaney, if you rose and glided out of the room, what would that suggest the way you felt?
I think you just wanted to leave.
But if you could run out, you could walk out, you could stamp out, stomp out, but what is it when you rose and glided out? What does the word gliding suggest about the way you might feel?
Trying to be like secretive.
Possibly. What else? What do you think?
Like, you feel free, like you can just like quietly, like he's not angry, he's very calm.
Yes, I think those words are important. So we just answered for, so what are the two ways, we haven't answered for, to come to terms with the stars? There's stars in the classroom and there's stars outside the classroom. What's the difference? What are the two ways that you can study stars?
By listening to someone, and
Right.
like hearing a lecture, or by like seeing them for yourself and going out and observing them.
Very good. You get that? Those are two. By the way, does that apply to other things other than stars? Could you learn almost anything both ways? I mean, isn't there a way that you, and so what is the second way? Maybe hands-on personal experience as opposed to listening to a professor? Frankly, I don't know how math could work that way. How could you learn math outside of a classroom? You ever had a job? You have a job. Don't you have a job? I don't even know what you do. What do you do?
I work at a research shop.
Do you ever use math?
Yeah,
How?
counting the register.
All right. So that's one way to practice math. The other way is to have a teacher write it on the board and you do it. So that could apply to almost any two things. Look at number 5. From which of these two ways is the speaker trying to arouse the reader's sympathy? Like, not only, well, which does he prefer? Inside the classroom or outside the classroom?
Outside.
Outside. And you know the very words we use, like mystical and gliding and rising, doesn't that suggest that he likes that? But what words did he use in the first part of the poem to suggest he doesn't like that? And he wants you to feel like he feels. What are some words that he uses in the first half of the poem? Sarah, do you see any?
Well, he uses like, first he uses like a lot of, like when they're doing it, like the proofs, the figures, like the charts and diagrams, which just seems like that's a lot to do.
Right.
If you're reading it, and then he's saying that he lectured, which usually when you hear like lecture, you think like boring.
Right.
And then he says he's tired.
Very good. Very good answer. So you use the evidence in the poem, the words of the poem, to prove your point, is that he doesn't particularly like the fact that they're listing sometimes is dull. You know, okay, I've heard it. You've got all this long list. Last one. We answered the last one. It seems like the last one. 6 is a lot like 5. Turn the page. Number 7, we've answered that. Is the poem concerned with more than presenting two opposed way of looking at stars? We agree, right? Math, whatever, you could almost do it. Look at number 8. Are these the only possible attitudes or viewpoints from which to understand the stars? Are they mutually exclusive? What might be a third attitude or viewpoint? Like, these are the only two choices you have. Either you're going to learn it in the classroom or you're going to learn it on your own outside. Is there a third way? Well, let me ask you one other question. Are there things you can learn in the classroom that you cannot learn staring outside and looking at the stars? Definitely. Like what? What can you learn in the classroom you could never learn just staring at them on your own?
Like why they're there or how they work or the composition is.
Very good. All those things. You cannot look at the stars and answer any of those questions. So the question still stands, is there a third way of doing it? Those are only two choices. Either you sit in the classroom or you look at them for yourself. What's the third way? You're going to kick yourself when you know the answer. Now, there may be 4 ways or 5 ways, but there's definitely a third way.
Is it just like growing up with it? Or like we never, I guess, like when we were learning like how to speak, I guess that could be observing, but then it could also just be like kind of like instinct from growing up.
Well, that's a really good example. And you're right, we learn it, we don't learn it in a classroom. We only learn it by living, right? It's just kind of instinct. Of course, we talked about this already. Where do you learn to read? Or at least somebody has to teach you. I don't think you can teach yourself how to read. Is that possible? Would it be possible to teach yourself how to read? I mean, you couldn't be 6 years old. I mean, when people are. Anybody want to try one last guess, though? Another way, a third way?
I mean, Frankenstein's monster taught himself.
And yet, how did he do it? He did it by listening to others read, right? He kind of watched them through that peephole in the wall, and he listened to others. Well, I won't tease you any longer. Isn't it possible as a third way, and that might be a third way as well, but isn't it possible to do both? Why do you have to limit yourself to one or the other? Can't you do both? Can't you learn in the classroom and then take it out of the classroom? I learned to read pretty much in a classroom, but did you know I read when I go home? I read, and I don't just read in a classroom. So that is a third possibility, is that you combine the two. Because there's some things that one offers that the other does not. All right, I think we have 10 minutes, but I'm going to give you this assignment. And let's do the last one. Let's skip Oh Captain. We'll do that together. Go to the last one. Cavalry crossing a ford. I'm going to ask you to read it. You can work together if you want to. You just want to do it yourself. But there are a few questions that go with this somewhere. Yeah, there are 6 questions. I will read this out loud. And then I want to answer the questions, and I think you've got 10 minutes. All right, cavalry crossing. What is cavalry? Notice it's not Calvary, C-A-L-V-A-R. It's cavalry. You know what cavalry is? Anybody know what cavalry is? You know what a cavalier is? You know what a cavalcade is? Cavalry is horse soldiers. They ride horses. All right, let me read it to you. A line in long array, where they wind betwixt green islands, they take a serpentine course, their arms flash in the sun, hark to the musical clank. Behold the silvery river, in it the splashing horses, loitering, stop to drink. Behold the brown-faced men, each group, each person a picture, the negligent rest on the saddles. Some emerge on the opposite bank, others are just entering the ford, while, scarlet and blue and snowy white, the guiding flag flutter gaily in the wind. That's a poem. And you can read it again, and you've got a few questions you can ask each other to help you. I think we have 10 minutes. Yes, we have 10 minutes. Now we have none.
Can I look at that picture?
Yes. Yeah, always a good idea. That's a smart thing to do, look a word up. I have dictionaries over there. What?
A week
Oh, yeah.
after.
All right, well, see, would you show this to me tomorrow? I'll check it.
Your videos too.
Thank you.